The Brutalist was not a movie I was super looking forward to. I was kind of excited to watch it until I saw the runtime of 3.5 hours. Do you know what I could do in 3.5 hours? I could almost binge the entire first season of The Bear. I could bake a cake, eat it, regret it, and then go for a long walk to feel better about myself. But no, instead I'll be sitting through this movie. To be fair though, I've watched most of the other long films from 2024. Some of them I loved, some I disliked, and some I honestly can't wait to see again. So while a long runtime doesn't necessarily mean I won't watch it, this movie does have to earn every minute. And The Brutalist clocks in as the longest theatrical release of the year by a solid half hour. But let's talk about my expectations. First, with all the buzz surrounding The Brutalist, I expect some truly excellent acting. Adrien Brody has already won the Golden Globe for Best Actor, and the movie itself took home Best Motion Picture. I've seen most of the other contenders for Best Picture this year, and none of them have generated as much hype for both the movie and the lead performance. There have been some fantastic films with incredible acting, so if this one doesn't blow my socks off, I'll be disappointed. So my expectations are pretty high, but how did it go?
Warning, please see me about your $25 travel aid.
Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen The Brutalist, this is your chance to pause the video, watch it, and then come back. So now let's talk about the movie. The Brutalist is undeniably Oscar bait. It's also modern, and it bears a striking resemblance to Better Man, the movie, which was another Oscar bait film. Let's talk about each of these. Oscar bait refers to movies that are strategically designed to appeal to the Academy Awards voters, and The Brutalist checks several boxes. These are just my top 10. It was a late release. It had limited release in December and a wide release in January, which is perfect for awards season. It has heavy subject matter. They're Hungarian immigrants who are fleeing World War II to chase the American dream, which is about as heavy as it gets. It's a historical drama rooted in historical context, as I previously noted. It has an A-list cast. Adrien Brody leads with Guy Pearce and Felicity Jones supporting. It has social commentary. The film is absolutely brimming with it. It has an artsy cinematic style. The visual style is very artsy, as many people have already noted. It has themes of tragedy, which is absolutely true. This is a full-blown tragedy, no doubt about it. It has a long runtime, absolutely. 3.5 hours, which kind of was unnecessarily long, but it was really long. It has moral complexity, which I can kind of understand. But the morals were so overt that there's no nuance. It's all laid out right in front of you. And the 10th sign is there were lengthy monologues, which this is an area that I was actually disappointed because I was expecting at least one Adrien Brody soliloquy, but there were none. So this movie was also modern or non-traditional. What do I mean by modern? For me, it's about going against traditional storytelling structures. Here are 3 examples from The Brutalist. First is the marriage. Laszlo Toth, who is Adrien Brody's character, and Erzsébet Toth, Felicity Jones's character, have a really strained marriage. That's not at all traditional. Half of the movie is spent with them separated due to the war and Erzsébet's immigration status. It's a childless marriage with an adopted niece, marked by surface-level affection and deep loyalty that kind of borders on irrational. Despite their coldness and cruelty to each other, their bond is portrayed as being unbreakable in a non-traditional sort of way. It's really a weird dynamic that I wasn't on board with. Second is that it's a tragic arc. This movie is an absolute tragedy in the classical sense. Laszlo is a talented architect chasing the American dream, who is ultimately destroyed by addiction, exploitation, and an unjust system. One key element of a tragedy is that the hero's downfall is central, and in this case, Laszlo is both the hero and the fallen figure. 3 is social and political commentary. Director Brady Corbett said in an interview that this was one of the film's key inspirations. And while I appreciate the subtle elements of commentary, some of it is blatant. And when commentary becomes that overt, it needs to feel secondary to the story or like a natural part of it. In this movie, sometimes it takes center stage. One issue that I had was the way that side characters were handled. Some, like the single father Laszlo meets early on, or the oppressive coworker, they serve specific plot purposes, but they stick around longer than necessary, and they don't really have any further developments. Their shallow, one-dimensional roles weaken the overall cohesion of the movie, making it feel less tightly woven than it should be. The other thing about this movie is that there's a lot of similarities to Better Man. Now, Better Man is another Oscar bait movie, and here were a few of the parallels. They both feature immensely talented protagonists. Each movie revolves around a magnum opus defining piece of art. Both depict rough, strained relationships. Substance abuse plays a significant role in both stories. Neither has a redemptive arc. Now, The Brutalist is a tragedy while Better Man is a music biopic, but they both follow similar trajectories. In both films, the protagonist pushes away their friends near the climax, and both are betrayed by someone who initially offered them a deal. The similarities are kind of hard to ignore with them both being in Oscar season. And if you've seen both films, you might feel a sense of deja vu. Also, here's the thing about tragedies. For them to work, the audience must connect with the protagonist's fall. In The Brutalist, that connection might feel limited because it is tied to specific social and political themes that may not connect with everyone. But for those who do connect, this movie will hit hard. For those who like to take movies and think about them over time, The Brutalist is an absolute goldmine of symbolism and complexity. I'll admit that I didn't love it when I left the theater because 3.5 hours felt really long. I mean, I had to take 2 bathroom breaks. Plus, as someone who values a tightly woven story, I personally found the narrative lacking in cohesion, especially in the second half. But as I've had time to reflect, I can appreciate how rich the movie is in its layering. It's arguably the most complex film of the year. Adrien Brody's performance was excellent, but I'm not super convinced it was the best male performance of this year, much less of his entire career. There were other performances this year that were just as good, and others that probably won't get nominated, but were still great. And while I'm pretty disappointed that Adrien Brody didn't have a standout soliloquy, I do understand why this movie is in contention for Best Picture. It's rich, complex, unique, and it features outstanding performances. But that's just my take. What do you think? Have you seen The Brutalist? Did you love it or did you hate it? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.